Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another first impressions video. In today's first impressions video, we're switching it up a little bit. We're taking a look again at my Mini-14. This time it is a new to me SBR. And before we get this video started, there are no sponsors. So if you want to help me out, hit that subscribe button, comment down below. I'm going to try my hardest to get back to you. Like the video, share it, all that good stuff. This is essentially 2014 style YouTube. I am just doing gear and gun reviews like the old school days. No drama, no BS, just guns that I love in an unbiased fashion. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely stick around. This gun quickly became freaking internet famous on Reddit and Instagram. It was one of my most liked posts on Instagram of all time. So everyone seemed to freaking love this gun when I dropped the photo, and everyone wanted to know more about it. This originally has been on the channel many times. It was actually purchased by me back in the day when I was about 18 years old at a Walmart up in New York. And of course, it did not have this Samson manufacturing stock. I've had a few videos of this stock on my channel, but it was originally a Mini-14 Ranch rifle. So if you're familiar with the Ranch, it has an 18-inch barrel, standard wood stock, and in New York, of course, it had a 10-round magazine, and that was it. And that was how this rifle stayed for a very long time. I got the Samson manufacturing stock, which looked awesome, but still that 18-inch barrel just left a little bit to be desired. What I ended up doing is filing for a Form 1 on this rifle, and I had the barrel chopped down to 13 inches. So if you're familiar with the AC-556, this is essentially now a representation of an AC-556 that is not fast fire. It is still just standard semi-automatic. But the original AC-556s did have this stock, and they had about a 13.5-inch barrel. But I figured a 13-inch barrel would be about perfect. If you guys notice here, I can try to get my hand on the other side, but these newer barrels, new-ish barrel, this is still about a 10-year-old rifle, have quite the heavy taper right here. So essentially a 13-inch barrel gets it right to the end of the taper that your muzzle device is going to start. This rifle looks truly incredible. Like, this is like gun nirvana for me. I've had this rifle for a long time, and it's sat in the safe. It always, the 18-inch barrel, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. I cut the barrel on this thing. I put the accessories on it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I can't surpass how I feel about this rifle. 13-inch barrel, Form 1, got it cut. I did not do the cut myself. I sent this to a gunsmith. It is not one that you guys are going to know. The gun shop that I work at part-time at, we send out our barrels to get cut by a local gunsmith here. So that was what it was sent to. It was about $275 to get it cut. If you guys aren't familiar with Mini-14s and pulling the barrels, there's quite a few horror stories with the receivers cracking when you go to pull the barrel out. Sometimes they thread out easily, other times they don't. Could you do it yourself? Possibly, if you're pretty talented, but I would go ahead and just send this thing off to a gunsmith to get cut. And that, again, is what I did. A lot of people were asking about this mount here. This is a mount from Skinner Sights, surprisingly. And all of these things I paid full retail for. So again, I paid for this. But Skinner Sights sells the mount that just screws into the section here underneath your front sight, which is now the front sight, but originally the barrel band. And this actually goes to about 1.5 more Picatinny slots, but of course the size was a little too long. So please do not take note of how horrendous my grinder job is on the cut there, but I did have to cut it, and I did put some Aluma Black on there, so you can't really tell that it's cut. I shaved off about 1 pick slot, and it works perfectly. I'm running a Mod Light build small, essentially small scout light on here, and that's with the Arisaka offset mount. And you can see that with that, it just, I mean, it mounts it perfectly on there. It's still pretty easy to get to with my thumb. No issues at all there, so I have no complaints. I'm not going to use any sort of pressure pads on this. And I am running the Samson Manufacturing AC-556 front sight. So this simply replaces what was once your front sight on the barrel and allows you to put it over the gas block section there. gg&G rail. This rail, you know, I don't know. I was running originally a Ruger factory rail that came in the box, and that just uses the standard screws that screw into your receiver. Why you would not do that on this rail, I don't know. But in this case, you have two like tensioning screws on either side, and it allows you to actually accidentally kind of angle the rail one way or another. They want you to like straighten it as you're mounting it, and that just really didn't make sense to me as to why you would ever have an optics rail that could have that much human error in mounting it. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But once it was mounted straight, it's a super rugged setup. So it is what it is. It ended up costing, like, I think they retail around 50 bucks. So not the end of the world, but it does raise it up a little bit from the standard height on the factory rail. And I'm running an RMR Type 2 on here with just a generic, I don't even know, off-brand RMR mount. Got this zeroed up and it worked great on this setup. Rocking goon tape here. The goon tape on this grip is really helpful. The grip is super slick, and on the Samson stock, I have given myself like black and blue marks on my cheek when I've brought this up from ready ups. It's a thick piece of steel back here, so if you're not ready for it, you can clock yourself pretty good with this. So wrapping it with something helps in that department, and also it was like 15 freaking degrees at the range today, and it was very, very cold, so it was really helpful with the cold. I am running just standard sling loops on the side and a standard M1 Garand GI OD cotton web sling on here. Works great, no complaints. Works as a sling is intended to work. Nothing high speed, but you know what? It gets the job done. This thing ran so damn good at the range. Like, unbelievably good. There were a lot of questions that people were asking, hey, is that going to run reliably? You cut the barrel. How is it running suppressed? I'm proud to say that I ran 200 rounds exclusively suppressed today without a single issue of any type. This is one of the very few rifles in 556 in my collection that I've seen with a suppressor on with little to no change whatsoever with how the rifle shoots. It was not extra gassed or anything. I was not getting any gas to the face. I've seen some complaints about that, but realistically, all the gas was kind of angled in this direction and down out underneath the magazine. And this is a piston system. So a lot of that gas is up here, and it was, I felt nothing in my face, which is impressive when it comes to a 556 suppressed. Also, I want to note that for the first two magazines, I had no hearing protection on with my Resilient Simple Man on the end, and I had zero ringing whatsoever. It had this awesome, like, twang of the op rod slamming forward, but other than that, it was incredibly quiet for a 13-inch 556, which got me even more excited. Ejection pattern was still perfect, and I also shot it unsuppressed, and it ran without issue unsuppressed. So reliability is still unmatched on this wonderful Mini-14. I am running a Rearden 3-prong muzzle device up top, and then also a Rearden Atlas mount in the back of my Simple Man suppressor. And this is now going to be my new EDC rifle. I never thought I would replace my Colt monolithic 11.5 AR, but this is it. It folds, it's compact, it can be shot from the folded position, and it's even more compact than my 11.5 AR. And even though the barrel looks so unbelievably short, it's still 13 inches. So I am getting a full 13-inch of velocity, if you will, out of the 556, and that is excellent. So I have a lot of power still in a very compact package, which I really, really appreciate. Was running primarily Ruger magazines through this, if anybody cares. I did have some like off-brand, probably Pro Mags, but I got them used, and those ran just fine. And I have some old school Tapco magazines, which back in the day, those surprisingly ran incredibly well for Mini-14 magazines. So I think that more people are going to be jumping on this bandwagon with the Mini-14. When I purchased this rifle way back in the day, it was like $750 brand spanking new. Unfortunately, nowadays, a Mini-14 ranch rifle is like on the shelf at $1,200, but you can find them used for a little bit cheaper. But these rifles are slept on, man. I don't know as much about the Mini-30s. I've heard some issues with the 7.62x39 variations and the 300 Blackout, but I can tell you from multiple experiences with mine and many others that the Mini-14 in 556 is just a bomb-proof setup. They really, really are. And there were some people with complaints throughout the years, but I think a lot of that is just regurgitated forum talk that's not really based on any sort of actual shooting. This rifle is incredible, and if you're looking to just kind of get something slightly different than your standard AR-15 that's still incredibly capable, the Mini-14 can absolutely be that. I'm going to be taking this to some competitions now that I've kind of decided that this is my EDC rifle. I want to get more high-stress training in. But with the Skinner Sights pick rail mount up here, you don't have to change the plastic, which I think is just kind of like a pinnacle look of the Mini-14, this plastic heat shield up here. And just the RMR, they're two small changes, but with the shortened barrel, this thing is just a beast. It really is unbelievably cool at the range and unbelievably practical. So there's going to be a lot more videos about this in the future. This is one of the very few, if maybe only, configuration exactly like this that I've ever seen out there on the internet. So hopefully people get a little bit of interest in this, maybe try to do something similar and get the Mini-14 a little bit more love lately. Guys, that is going to wrap up this first impressions video on the new upgrades to my Mini-14. If you guys have any other questions about this rifle or anything else on the channel, drop them down below in the comments section. You guys know the deal. While you're down there, head up to the description, check out those links to support the channel, and as always, stay tuned for more great content coming soon.